Hello, my chin friend. Uh, so this is the third part for the introduction to Guqin Classics, Guanshanyue, Moon over the Mountain Pass. So today we are going to focus more on the artistic issue and how to, after you master all the technical detail, how to play this piece, with kind of a refined treatment, and with greater expressive power, put more thought into it. One general principle to me for Guqin playing and really to any musical playing to me is that you need to pay attention to every sound, every note, every noise you make. You need to pay attention to it. Some sound are long, powerful, strong, loud, and that draw people's attention. And some of the sound are soft, short, fast, very light, and even silence. But for the player, you need to give equal attention to every sound, to pay attention to every movement you do, every action you take, right? So give each sound its proper attention. To me, that's the number one principle for music playing. For another general observation, this is regarding the general difference between kind of Chinese music and the music of the West, is that Chinese music, in general, it's not all of them, but in general, it tended to start slow and gather speed as the music progress, get faster, get rhythmic, and eventually end slowly as well. So this is very different from Western music. If you are familiar with Western music, for example, a typical concerto or a typical symphony, the general arrangement of the movements is usually fast, slow, and fast, right? Fast, slow, kind of a dance, and then very fast at the end. So for a bigger musical piece in the West, it tended to be fast, slow, fast, that kind of contrast. And in Chinese music, it is usually the opposite, right? It's usually slow, fast, and slow. While Western music tended to end with a big bang, right? You have like Beethoven or Mozart have that ending like boom, 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 that kind of big bang, announcing that the music is coming to an end. Chinese music tended to end a piece quiet, right? So it tended to have a long note, and that long note does not disappear, end suddenly, but letting the sound diminish gradually, from a louder sound to softer sound to very soft, and eventually diminish to silence. That's usually how Chinese music end. So Guanshanyue follow this kind of rhythmic pattern as well. Since this is not a very long piece, so let me demonstrate the first half. So this piece originally, it was written to accompany a famous poem by Tang Dynasty poet Li Bai. So it has lyrics, it can be sung, but I treat it as a pure kind of instrumental music, so that I can add more variety, add more kind of technical difficulty, and make it richer in terms of pure music. But it is originally accompanying a poem, and the meaning of the lyrics of the verses should be considered while you play this piece. So it's not very long. So I'm going to demonstrate the first half, which is before the repeat. And so pay attention to what I said about the rhythmic pattern for Chinese music. Start slow and gradually gathering speed, and eventually end also slowly as well. Okay, so this is the first half. So it started very slow. So let me first introduce the lyrics. I'm sorry for the alarm clock. So the first verse, 明月出天山，苍茫云海间, can be translated roughly, the bright moon is rising above the mountain of heaven in an infinite haze of cloud and sea, right? So it's depicting a very vast scenery. So you should, picture that in your mind. It is depicting a vast landscape, imagining, a mountain range, and the moon rising, and there was a haze of cloud. So with that kind of wide scenery, your music note should also be more farther apart. Shouldn't be too close to each other. If they are too close, it is not depicting a vast landscape. So thinking vast. So this is the, also imagine a Chinese painting or a film, a movie, right? So the first scene, you are not looking at a specific people, not depicting a specific action, a specific event, but depicting the background for what is going to happen. And in this case, it is a mountain, it is the moon, it is the cloud, right? So it's vast. And Guqin is a wonderful instrument to depict something that is that has such a scope, right? So the first, the bright moon rise from the mountain of heaven. So let the string, so the first notes are 3 open strings. So let the string to ring. Let it just ring. Don't too hasty to get to the second note. You know, let the sound ring in the room fully before you get to the second note. So let it fully develop. The Guqin has three kind of, you know, general kind of sound. The open string, and in this case, so the open string. The second type is the stopped string. That is, you use your finger to press the string to get a note. So and this sentence has two both of these two sounds, open string and the stopped sound. And the last two notes are harmonics. So according to traditional, you know, Guqin theory, the open string symbolize the earth, the harmonics symbolize the heaven, and the stopped sound symbolize the human world. Right? So this kind of traditional Confucian philosophy about the three worthies of our universe, all right? Heaven, earth, and human world. You know, our world. So the first sentence, this wonderful piece, you know, in the very beginning, in the very first sentence, display the richness of musical timbre with all three sound. So the first three notes, the open string, right? You know, open string, it bring about the earth. Of course, you know, the mountain is part of the earth, and so that landscape, and then the last few notes with the harmonics draw your attention to what is above the mountain. That is the moon, right? So it should be played slowly, and it also shouldn't be too rhythmic, right? So Chinese music, Guqin music at least, very often started slow and free speed, right? So you should have that slow speed and also relatively free, right? So the earlier note tended to be slower and lasting longer, and gradually kind of gathering the energy into the music, into the rhythm. So the first sentence is still not kind of a rhythmic yet, and in Chinese term it's called a 入拍. So it's not has not 入拍 yet. So it's still slow and free speed. So the next sentence 长风几万里，吹渡玉门关. The wind that has come 1,000 miles beat at the Jade Gate Pass. So, after depicting the landscape background, the mountain, the moon, and then the next verse, the first verse is stable, and then the second verse is depicting something that is moving, depicting movement. So although both of them, the first one, the moon, the mountain, and the haze, right, relatively stable, vast. And then the second verse depicts the wind blowing across the Jade Gate Pass, 玉门关. So in the poem, it has contrast, right? Contrast between static landscape and then the moving element. So in music, so here is the 长风几万里, the winds that blow across 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles actually, beats at the Jade Gate Pass. So the second verse is the part of the music that started getting rhythmic. So here, finally the music start to have regular beat, to have regular. You can think more in the on the same page as other musical tradition that has a rhythmic movement. It has a more kind of a marching feeling, right? Right. So next part is 汉下白登道，胡窥青海湾. So now the poem started with static landscape, moving nature, and then finally the third verse depict a human being. 汉下白登道. The Chinese troop kind of traveled down the Baideng Road and Hukui Qinghaiwan, while the Tatar troops peer across the water of the Blue Bay. So it depicts the two part, the two major actors in a film, right? So on one side, we have the Chinese troop or the troop of Han, and then on the other side it is the Tatar troops who were looking for opportunity to invade, while the Han troops were guarding the border, right? So finally, we get to the main actor of the drama, and in music, it got to a higher pitch, and it also used a lot more stopped sound. So here is the third verse. So this part, you should really bring about the huge contrast between the stopped sound and the harmonics, right? So And so these 大错, which created a harmony of two sound of octaves, that is kind of very harmonious, but also very loud. So this should be the loudest part of this piece. It should be here because it is kind of depicting two opposing forces that were stationed at the border, ready to fight each other. Right. So it's the greatest tension in the poetry, and it should be the greatest tension in the music. And this kind of yan, right? You hit the string with your thumb, and when you play this, you should imagine the weapons that kind of clashing against each other. It has that kind of a feeling, right? So it has kind of a belligerent, a military spirit in this kind of sound. So again. And this is this picking up or 抓起. So these fingerings are energetic, right? Has certain kind of drama. It is also, good at depicting this actions like battle, like struggle, right? So the first part depicting the army of Han traveling down the Biden Road. So when you play it, you should picture that. You should also have a feeling of kind of troops marching, and the 大错 rhythmic 大错 does have that kind of a marching feeling. So maybe the clashing of the weapon is not fighting the enemy, rather it is the fellow soldiers of the Han people. And when they were marching, they are holding their spears, and their spears touch one another's, and creating that kind of sound, right? So the next verse is about the Tatar, or in the Chinese called Hu, which in general refer to the barbarian, right? The barbarians. The Chinese call those border people just generically call them barbarians, and who are the barbarians living in the north. And or here we translate as Tatar, or because that is when the Tang Dynasty, this poem was written in the Tang Dynasty. During the Tang Dynasty, those people are the Tatars and Turks, right? So they were peaking at the lake of Green Bay, Qinghaiwan, which is today in the Qinghai province. There's still a big lake, right? So in the Tang Dynasty, that was the border between the Han Chinese and the Tatar. So they are peaking, right? And in this case, the use of the harmonics, instead of symbolizing heaven, it certainly has that kind of more careful sound, more quiet. You feel like when you play this part, you are not too openly, it has the appearing feeling. Imagine when you play this part, someone is peering, spying, right, at the border. Right? So it also make a huge contrast. The previous one, imagine the Han army marching loudly with the weapons striking across against one another. And then the next part, the enemy, the Tatars, were spying at the border. So, keep that in mind and feel that contrast. Right. So next verse, 由来征战地，不见有人还. So here, the tone of the poem get turned to kind of inner feeling, right? Lamenting, and it's sad. So 由来征战地，不见有人还. So from the beginning, the battlefields in the battlefield, no soldier was seen returning home. So that's basically what it is saying. Or let me see what the translation here said. And since not one battle famous in history sent all its fighters back again. Right? 由来征战地，不见有人还. Or another translation, from the beginning of those who go into battle, no one man is seen returning. So obviously, here Li Bai, the poet, is lamenting about the cruelty of battle. So it's kind of also a criticism to war, right? So it's kind of an anti-war poem here. So from that, the previous marching and spying, and here it turned to psychological aspect, right? So the poem, and in music, it should be it should reflect that transition, from the outside world to the inner world, right? Peking. Right. So here is from the beginning in the battlefield, no soldier was observed returning home. Right? So it's sad. So here this part is all stopped sound, right? So almost all stopped sound, like the old Chinese theory, about the the stopped sound, which is about the human world. So here it's psychological, and it is also kind of using all the stopped sound, right? So the kind of emotional and psychological reflection on battle, politics, and war. So the last note here should be very soft, right? That note should be soft. And it use a lot of music here, use a lot of sliding, right? So this sliding down. So here, you should add some embellishment. So So this is rather, bland. Add a zhuang here. So just kind of move quickly up and down. As if, when you speak, your voice, the human voice, when one get emotional and the voice had certain kind of a quality. And again, another sliding. And also notice here, the tone is sad, and the music is not also going down. It's continuously, progressively going down. From the higher string, going down, 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 and eventually down to the second string. And there, it ends with a very soft sound. The third string. And then zhuaqi. So that zhuaqi you should imagine as a sign, right? A sign. So next verse. 续客望边色，思归多苦颜. Now, the soldiers turned around looking at the border and think of home with wistful eyes. Their eyes are bitter. So here, this verse depicts the soldiers, from the previous one is lamenting, and this part, it finally kind of zoom in, spotlighted the soldier. And so they were, observing, looking toward the border, and their eyes are full of bitterness. So here, the music started with a zhu, and that zhu is sliding down to the designated note, to the targeted note, right? Right. Right. So here, it continued the previous kind of a emotional tendency, and the notes get lower and further, lower again. So it started with a down note, started with a zhu. And in general, zhu and chuo, zhu express a certain kind of a depression, and it's sentimental. So when the tone is sad, you use a lot of zhu. In general, chuo tended to be kind of more bring the spirit higher. It's accompanying the happy or peaceful or calmful section of the music, right? So right. Lower. So for all these sliding, so you notice there are a lot of sliding. For all these slidings, they shouldn't be too fast. So these sliding should be relatively slow. Here. And then finally, the last last sentence of the music, also the last verse of the poem, 高楼当此夜，叹息未应弦. Of all those tonight in the upper chambers who toss and sigh and cannot rest, cannot sleep, right? So my understanding, the last sentence is not depicting the soldiers anymore. It's not depicting the guarding soldiers or the Tatar soldiers. It is depicting the loved ones of the soldiers. Because the soldiers are not on the 高楼, not on the upper chamber. So for those tonight in the upper chamber, these are maybe the wife, the lovers, the parents, the kids of these soldiers. So they are at home. They are not on the border. So while these soldiers cannot sleep, they were observing the border. Their loved ones also cannot sleep while they are safely in their homeland, and they climb up to the upper chamber looking at the same moon. And so they were missing each other, and both of them cannot sleep. So to me, this last sentence is depicting the loved one of the soldiers who toss and sigh and cannot sleep. And you can also understand this as the imagination of the soldier. The soldiers imagined their loved ones, who were in their homeland and climbing up to the high chamber, looking at the moon, and cannot sleep, right? So anyway, the last sentence draw back the scenery, zoom out from, the previous one was depicting the face of the soldier. Their eyes are bitter and they are, home missing and looking at the border sceneries. And then finally, the last sentence is drawing from that close-up observation of the soldier to the far away place where there were high towers, chambers, and there were people, sleepless. And so it's kind of in terms of the scope of the scenery, it returned to the opening sentence, returned to the vast kind of scenery. And indeed, the music is very similar to the first sentence. Right? So in general, so playing this piece, there is a rhythmic pattern from free and slow speed to faster and rhythmic, and then to slow speed again. And in terms of kind of a visual reference for the musical sound, you should imagine from the static landscape of mountain and moon with those vast apart notes, just like the vastly apart natural element, and then to the moving natural element, the wind blowing across the battlement, and then from the scenery depiction to gradually zoom in to the close-up view, to the kind of a to the close-up view, observing the human action while there were two opposing forces marching and then spying, and then the development of the music then turned to psychological depiction about the homesick soldiers missing home, and from their psychology to their face, to the very kind of spotlighted depiction of individuals, and then suddenly the the camera kind of zoom out and depict the imagination of the soldiers, which is maybe 10,000 li away from the border, about the high tower and their loved ones climbing up to the tower, looking at the same moon. So look, the ending of the picture should be something like that. The moon come back, but it's shining on different peoples. So that's the kind of a general musical development, and the music worked very well with the poetry, as I explained. So, but this music also has a repeat, right? After you finish the last part, right? So in the faraway place, the loved one goes up the high chamber and toss and sigh and cannot rest. So here, after you finish first time of the piece, you shouldn't slow down too much, because the music repeat from the very beginning again. Don't slow down too much. So you should keep that kind of rhythmic marching feeling at the end of the first section, and then up to the 9th hui, to the 7.9 hui, and then to the 7th hui again. And then start the music all over again. So this time, even the first verse should be rhythmic, right? Even the first verse should be rhythmic. And also here, we make some variation. The second time we have some variation in the second video for this intro to this classics. I have introduced the technical part of the variation, the change, right? So here the rhythm is different, in keeping with the kind of marching rhythm. So in this case, we added more note, added more kind of a intensive vibration, and so to make the music more agitated and more kind of excited, right? And the speed in general is faster than the first time when we play the same place. And this is also going to be create a stronger contrast with the ending, because the ending is going to be dramatically slowed down. And so with the gathering speeding up for the second time of the playing of the same melody, it created stronger contrast with the ending, right? So so I will just play the second part with the variation and also faster speed, and then make the contrast to the ending, right? So for the second time, the last verse, the last sentence, when I play it, it is going to be slowed down quite dramatically, and creating a strong contrast to the fast speed of the second time playing. Second time. All right, thank you. And I hope this is helpful. And please thumb up, please subscribe, and please feel free to share.